Ethan Cross had always been curious about the unknown. Even as a child, he would stare at the night sky for hours, imagining what worlds might exist beyond Earth. Now, as a trained explorer and scientist, he was about to step onto one of those worlds. The mission seemed straightforward: explore the uncharted planet Zephyra 7, collect samples and report any signs of life. Nothing in his training had prepared him for what he was about to discover. The landing was smoother than expected. The planet's surface was covered in strange vegetation, glowing faintly in shades of blue and green. The air was breathable but carried a scent Ethan had never encountered. Sweet, almost metallic, like ozone mixed with wildflowers. As he stepped out of the shuttle, he felt a shiver of excitement run down his spine. This was what he had trained. For the first human to explore a world untouched by human presence, Ethan activated his exploration suit, the soft hum of the built-in systems comforting him. His sensors scanned the immediate area, recording atmospheric conditions, gravity, and other environmental data. There was no sign of large predators, though the readings showed subtle movement in the vegetation, creatures too small or too hidden to see immediately. He set off toward a nearby ridge, hoping it would give him a better view of the landscape. The terrain was uneven, with strange crystal formations jutting from the ground. He touched one gently, and it vibrated slightly under his fingers. Ethan smiled. The world was alive in ways he hadn't imagined. Hours passed as he explored. He collected samples of plants, minerals, and soil, carefully labeling each in his digital pad. The sky above was clear, but Ethan noticed that the sun didn't move in a typical pattern. Its light shifted in unusual ways, casting long shadows that danced across the crystal formations. The beauty of the planet was mesmerizing, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. Then, he saw it. In the distance, partially. Hidden behind a hill, there was a structure, ancient, massive, and unmistakably artificial. Ethan's pulse quickened. The material glowed faintly, pulsing as if it had a heartbeat. He crouched behind a crystal formation and studied it. The structure looked like a palace, its towers spiraling into the sky, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Strange symbols were etched along the walls, and the doors were enormous, carved from a single piece of shimmering stone. Curiosity overrode caution. Ethan approached the structure slowly, scanning for traps or signs of danger. As he reached the main entrance, he noticed a faint hum in the air, like energy flowing through the walls. His sensors picked up a small anomaly. A section of the floor ahead of him was slightly warmer than the rest. He stepped carefully, testing each footfall. Then, without warning, the ground beneath him shifted. Panels in the floor slid apart, and Ethan stumbled, catching himself just before he fell into a pit. Lights flashed along the walls, and a soft voice, melodic but unintelligible, echoed through the chamber. Ethan froze. He didn't understand the language, but he could feel the power in it. Something ancient and intelligent was aware of him. Suddenly, a soft glow appeared at the far end of the hall. Ethan shielded his eyes and took a cautious step forward. The glow intensified, forming the shape of a tall, elegant figure. She was unlike any life form he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered. Like liquid silver, her eyes glowed with a golden light, and her movements were graceful, almost floating. She looked directly at him, and in that moment, Ethan felt something stir deep within him, a mixture of awe and fear. The figure spoke again, and this time he felt her words in his mind rather than hearing them aloud. "Why have you come, human?" Ethan stumbled backward, heart racing. He had expected aliens to exist somewhere in the galaxy, but he had never imagined encountering one like this, an alien queen, ancient and powerful. He struggled to form words, but all he could manage was, I'm here to explore. I mean no harm." The queen tilted her head, studying him. There was intelligence in her gaze, sharp and calculating, yet it was not cruel. She seemed curious, almost amused by his presence. Ethan realized that she could sense his fear, his hesitation, even his honesty. Before he could react further, the ground shook violently. The walls of the palace vibrated as if responding to a distant roar. Ethan turned to see enormous shadowy creatures approaching through the open entrance, predators native to the planet. Massive and insect-like with jagged limbs and glowing eyes. They moved fast, faster than anything he had seen before. Panic surged through him. He had no weapons capable of stopping them. Without thinking, Ethan ducked behind a pillar, trying to figure out what to do. The Queen stepped forward calmly, raising a hand. A wave of energy pulsed from her, and the creatures froze, their movements jerky and confused. She glanced at Ethan. "Follow me," she projected into his mind. Ethan hesitated only a second before rushing after her. The Queen led him through, twisting corridors, opening doors and passages he didn't know existed. The predators followed, but each time the Queen gestured, they recoiled, unable to enter certain chambers. She didn't speak to him aloud. Instead, the bond between them seemed to grow, a strange connection that allowed him to understand her intentions and fear. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the heart of the palace. It was circular with a high domed ceiling and walls covered in glowing symbols. In the center was a platform, and on it, a pool of silvery liquid shimmered. The Queen gestured toward it. "Rest here. They will not reach you for now." Ethan sank to the floor, breathing heavily. His mind raced with questions. Who was this being? Why had she been in this palace? And most importantly, what was the strange connection he felt growing between them? The Queen stood silently, watching the door as the predators retreated into the shadows. Then she turned to him, her glowing eyes studying him in a way that made his heart pound. "You are not like the others," she said softly in his mind. "You're kind. You adapt. You survive. You change the impossible into reality." Ethan blinked. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he felt a strange warmth at her words, as if she had seen something in him that even he had not recognized. The fear that had gripped him moments ago began to fade, replaced by curiosity and determination. I just want to understand," he said aloud, though it felt almost unnecessary. She seemed to hear him anyway. "Understanding comes with danger, human," she replied. "But perhaps you are ready to face it." Ethan didn't know if he was ready, but deep down he realized he had no choice. The moment he had entered this palace, his fate had changed. He was no longer just an explorer. He had stepped into a world where humans had never ventured, where the rules of survival and power were beyond his imagination. And somehow, whether he wanted it or not, his fate had become entwined with the alien Queen who now stood before him. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement he could not separate. He had faced challenges on Earth, in simulations, even in dangerous field work, but nothing had prepared him for this. This was a world alive with power, mystery and intelligence far beyond his understanding. The Queen extended a hand toward him, not in threat but in invitation. Ethan hesitated for only a moment before taking it. The connection was immediate, a surge of energy and understanding flowing through him. In that instant, he knew that his life and perhaps the future of humanity had changed forever. As the sun set over Zephyra 7, casting the palace in shades of silver and gold, Ethan realized that he was no longer alone. The alien Queen was real, powerful, and now, unexpectedly, part of his journey. The adventure that had begun as a simple exploration had become something far greater. His courage, curiosity, and humanity were about to be tested in ways he could not yet imagine, and somehow, deep in his heart, he knew that he would not face it alone. The Palace of Zephyra 7 was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Every wall glowed faintly, etched with strange symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was alive with energy, and Ethan felt it hum beneath his skin. Yet even in this beauty there was danger. He knew the predators outside were still roaming, waiting for a chance. Lyra, the alien Queen, moved with a grace that made Ethan feel clumsy in comparison. She floated rather than walked, and her golden eyes seemed to see not only the room but into him, reading his thoughts and emotions. He still couldn't understand her words fully, but the bond they had formed allowed him to sense her intentions. It was strange, almost magical. "You must rest," she projected into his mind, her voice calm yet commanding. Ethan nodded, sinking to the soft, glowing floor of the chamber. He felt exhausted but also exhilarated. His heart was still racing from the encounter with the predators and the sudden discovery of the queen herself. "You saved me," Ethan said, unsure whether he was speaking aloud or to her mind. "It is not merely you saving me," she replied. "It is your courage, human, that draws you here. Your kind has a quality we have never seen before. Adaptability. A spark." Ethan's chest swelled with pride, but he shook his head. "I just reacted. I didn't know what else to do." "That is the difference," she said, her glowing eyes softening. "Your kind acts even without complete knowledge. You change what seems impossible." For the next few hours, Ethan explored the chamber under her watchful eyes. He noticed strange devices embedded in the walls, some kind of energy conduits, others perhaps surveillance mechanisms. Every so often, Lyra would touch one lightly, and it would respond, glowing brighter or shifting shape. Ethan realized she was communicating with the palace itself, as if the structure were alive. "I've never seen technology like this," Ethan murmured. "It's beyond anything humans could create." "We did not build it to be simple," Lyra replied. "We built it to survive time itself. It is both our protector and our memory." As Ethan explored, he realized something remarkable. The palace seemed to respond to him too. Doors that had been closed slid open when he approached, and symbols on the walls shifted as if recognizing his presence. Lyra noticed and studied him with interest. "You are different," she said. "Even the palace senses it. Perhaps it is destiny that brought you here." Ethan felt a mixture of awe and confusion. Destiny, him? He had never believed in such things, but now, standing in the presence of an ancient being whose very being seemed entwined with the planet, he could not dismiss the idea entirely. They spent the rest of the day exploring the inner chambers together. Lyra showed him places humans could barely imagine. Libraries of energy where glowing strands contained the memories of her people. Gardens where plants grew not from soil but from pure light. Chambers that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. Ethan's mind raced to comprehend it all. But it was not just the palace that fascinated him. Lyra herself was unlike any life form he had encountered. She could sense danger, emotion, and thought in ways humans could not. Yet she was curious about him, asking questions not in words but through a shared understanding. Ethan found himself answering instinctively, telling her about Earth, about humanity, about courage, fear, and hope. "You are brave," she projected at one point. "Bravery not for power, not for glory, but for understanding. That is rare." Ethan laughed softly. "I don't know about rare, but I try. I guess that's all humans can do, try." She tilted her head, studying him. "Perhaps that is why we are entwined. You are human, yet you carry something our kind has forgotten. The ability to act when all seems lost." Their connection grew as the day passed. Ethan realized he could almost feel Lyra's emotions as if they were his own. When she was calm, he felt peace. When she was alert, his senses sharpened. It was disorienting at first, but gradually he began to understand the rhythm of her mind, the pulse of her power. Just as they were beginning to rest, an alarm echoed through the palace, a low, resonating hum that vibrated through the floor. Ethan leapt to his feet. The predators were back, but this time they were not alone. Through the palace sensors, he saw strange figures approaching. Aliens of another species armed with weapons unlike anything he had seen. They moved with precision and intent, and Ethan realized immediately that they were hunting Lyra. "We must prepare," Lyra projected, her tone urgent. Ethan could feel the tension in her mind. "What do we do?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. He was human, and humans always found a way. "Follow me," she said. Lyra led him through hidden corridors, some invisible to the naked eye. They moved swiftly, yet Ethan could see her caution. She was not underestimating the threat. The corridors twisted and turned, but Ethan began to notice a pattern. The palace itself seemed to guide them, almost like it trusted him. As they reached a high chamber overlooking a vast inner courtyard, they saw the enemy. The rival aliens were formidable, their bodies armored and their weapons pulsing with energy. They had no idea the palace was alive, no idea that Lyra's bond with Ethan could make them vulnerable. "They will not expect human ingenuity," Lyra projected, almost amused. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no weapons as powerful as theirs, no armor to protect him, but he had something else. His mind, his quick thinking, and his willingness to take risks. Give me instructions, he said. I can help. Lyra studied him, then nodded. Then act as you do best, human. Adapt, survive, protect. Ethan's heart pounded, but he felt a surge of confidence. Humans had survived impossible odds before. They had faced challenges with creativity and courage, and now with the Queen's trust in him, he would do it again. The battle was unlike anything Ethan had imagined. He darted between shadows, using the palace's hidden mechanisms to block, confuse, and trap the enemy. Lyra fought beside him, her power bending the environment, creating barriers and illusions. Yet it was Ethan's quick thinking that turned the tide. He used a combination of mirrors, energy conduits, and simple human improvisation to redirect attacks, confuse the enemy, and give Lyra the opening she needed to strike decisively. Hours passed like minutes. By the end, the rival aliens retreated, defeated, and humiliated. The palace was intact, and Ethan stood beside Lyra, panting but exhilarated. You are remarkable, Lyra projected, her golden eyes glowing warmly, not just in courage but in thought. You adapt, and in doing so, you change fate itself. Ethan smiled, feeling a connection deeper than he had ever known. I couldn't have done it without you, he admitted. Perhaps, she said softly, but our bond is stronger because of what you bring. Humanity was more powerful than you realize. For the first time, Ethan truly understood what she meant. Humans had survived, thrived, and evolved because of their courage, ingenuity, and heart. And here, on this distant world, those very traits had not only saved lives but had begun to change the course of history. As they watched the stars appear above the glowing palace of Sci-Fi 7, Ethan realized that his journey was only beginning. He and Lyra were bound together now, not just by circumstance but by something deeper, a shared destiny that neither fully understood. Yet he felt no fear, only determination. Whatever came next, he would face it with the courage that had carried humanity for generations. And somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats and energy pulses, Ethan felt the first stirrings of a bond that would define both their lives, and perhaps the fate of an entire world. The calm that had settled over the palace of Sci-Fi 7 was fragile. Ethan and Lyra knew it would not last long. The rival faction that had attacked the palace before was not just a local threat. They were organized, relentless, and determined to capture the alien queen. Ethan awoke early in the glowing chamber, the hum of the palace filling the air like a heartbeat. Lyra was already awake, floating near a wall of shimmering symbols. Her eyes glowed faintly as she monitored the palace defenses. They will come again, she projected into his mind, her tone steady but serious. They will not forget their failure. Ethan nodded, rubbing his temples. Then we prepare. We need to be ready for anything. Lyra studied him. You understand strategy, human. That is why you survive. You think differently from my kind. Your perspective is valuable, he smiled faintly. I'll do my best. The palace itself seemed to sense the tension. Panels shifted, corridors realigned, and defensive systems hummed with renewed energy. Ethan marveled at how Lyra interacted with it. Each gesture she made activated mechanisms that he could barely comprehend. Yet despite the alien nature of it, he began to see patterns, understanding how the palace could be used not just for defense, but for clever offense. For days, Ethan and Lyra studied the surrounding terrain, mapping out potential invasion routes. Ethan used his human experience, observation, improvisation, and prediction to anticipate the enemy's moves. Lyra observed him quietly, noting how his mind worked, and she began to trust his instincts more than ever. One evening, as the twin suns of Sci-Fi 7 set, casting long shadows across the crystalline palace, Ethan noticed something alarming. Small scouts, shape-shifting creatures employed by the rival faction, were moving closer. They were invisible to most sensors, but Ethan's human intuition spotted the faint disturbances in the air. They are approaching, he whispered. Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. Good, then we test your courage, human. Show me again what your kind can do. Ethan swallowed hard but felt a surge of determination. Humans had faced overwhelming odds before. They had survived because they adapted, and now he would prove that again. The first attack came at night. Shadows moved quickly through the palace corridors, slipping past sensors and traps. Ethan and Lyra met them head-on. Lyra's powers bent the environment around them. Walls shimmered to form barriers, corridors twisted to confuse intruders. But it was Ethan's quick thinking that kept them alive. He used mirrors and reflective surfaces to redirect energy attacks, created diversions with glowing crystals, and lured enemies into traps that even Lyra had not considered. The battle was intense, but Ethan began to notice a rhythm. The enemies had power, yes, but they relied on predictability. Humans, in contrast, thrived on unpredictability. Each time an intruder approached, Ethan anticipated their moves and improvised. Lyra watched, fascinated. "Your kind is remarkable," she projected as they pushed the enemies back. "You see possibilities where others see limits." Ethan didn't have time to respond. Another wave of attackers surged forward, and he barely dodged a blast of energy. He rolled to the side, sending a panel swinging to block the enemy's path. Lyra followed, her powers bending the very walls around them to guide their movements and protect them. Hours passed in a blur of energy, movement, and strategy. Ethan felt exhaustion settling in, but he refused to stop. Humans could endure far more than their bodies seemed capable of, he reminded himself. They adapted. They survived. And now he would do both. By dawn, the intruders had retreated, battered and disoriented. Ethan and Lyra stood together in the main chamber, breathing heavily but victorious. "You adapt," Lyra projected, her tone soft but full of awe. "You think in ways my kind cannot. That is why we survived today." Ethan smiled faintly. "We survived together. You have power, I have ideas. Together we're stronger." "Stronger?" "Yes," she replied. "Perhaps this is the beginning of something greater. Our fates, intertwined." Ethan looked at her, feeling a strange warmth. He was just a human, yet he sensed that Lyra was not exaggerating. Their bond had grown beyond mere survival. It was a connection of trust, understanding, and mutual respect. In the days that followed, Ethan and Lyra worked to fortify the palace further. Ethan devised new traps and diversions, while Lyra expanded her influence over the palace's systems. The two of them complemented each other perfectly, human ingenuity blending with alien power. But the threat was far from gone. The rival faction regrouped quickly, and intelligence gathered by the palace indicated that they were bringing reinforcements. Ethan realized that their next confrontation would be even more dangerous. "You cannot fight them alone, Lyra," he projected one night as they surveyed the palace from above. "We need allies. Either from your people or someone else." "My people. They are wary of outsiders," she replied. "Yet perhaps you are the key. They will listen because of you. Your kind. They respect." Ethan felt a shiver of pride and responsibility. He had never led an army. Yet here he was, preparing to guide an alien civilization in a battle for survival. The weight of it pressed on him, but he did not falter. Humans thrived under pressure. They faced impossible odds and often emerged stronger. He would do the same. As the night deepened, Ethan and Lyra shared a quiet moment. The palace hummed softly around them, a living entity responding to their presence. Ethan touched the edge of a glowing panel, feeling energy pulse beneath his fingers. He realized that the palace itself had begun to recognize him, just as Lyra had. Their bond had not only affected her, but the very world around them. "You have changed this place," Lyra projected, her voice filled with wonder. "It responds to you now, human." "That is rare," Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm just doing what humans do, adapt and survive." "And yet your kind is more than survival," she replied softly. "You create possibilities. That is why I trust you." The next attack came sooner than expected. The rival faction had learned from their previous defeat and struck at multiple points simultaneously. Ethan and Lyra moved with precision, coordinating defenses, setting traps, and using the palace itself as a weapon. Ethan's quick thinking again proved vital. He used reflective surfaces to redirect energy blasts, leading enemy units into ambushes that Lyra had prepared. The battle raged for hours, testing both their strength and their bond. Ethan realized something important. He was not just fighting for himself or for Lyra, he was fighting for the palace, for her people, and for the future of a civilization that depended on their combined skills. Humans had always survived by working together, and now he was proving that even in an alien world that same principle could save lives. By the time the twin suns rose, the enemy had been repelled once more. Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, exhausted but victorious. The palace, though slightly damaged, hummed with renewed energy. The bond between human and alien queen had grown even stronger. "You have done well, human," Lyra projected, "not only for yourself but for all who rely on this palace. Your courage, it is extraordinary." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. We survived together. That's what matters. Yes, she said, her golden eyes glowing warmly. Together. Perhaps this is only the beginning. Our journey, and our bond, will shape more than just this world. Ethan knew she was right. He had come to Zephyra 7 as a simple explorer, curious about a distant planet. Now he was more than that. He was a strategist, a protector, and a partner to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Humanity had always survived against impossible odds. And now, standing beside the alien queen, he understood that their courage, adaptability, and determination could influence even worlds far beyond Earth. As he looked out over the glowing landscape, Ethan realized that the threats would keep coming. But he felt ready. He had Lyra's trust, the palace's support, and the ingenuity that had carried humans across countless challenges. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew one thing clearly. Humans could survive, adapt, and even thrive in worlds they had never imagined. And with Lyra by his side, their combined strength might just be unstoppable. The palace of Zephyra 7 was alive with preparation. After the recent attacks, Ethan and Lyra knew the next confrontation with the rival faction would be far more dangerous. This time, it would not be enough to rely solely on traps, improvisation, and the palace's defenses. They needed allies, Lyra's people, who had long been divided and wary of outsiders and perhaps even unexpected assistance from other corners of the planet. Ethan studied the palace's communication systems. He had learned enough from Lyra to send messages to distant parts of the city. The responses were cautious. Many of her people still mistrusted humans, but Ethan was patient. He had always known that humans earned trust not by words alone, but by action. Your people will need to see results, not promises, Ethan projected as he and Lyra stood on a high balcony overlooking the city. We need to show them that together we can survive. Lyra's eyes glowed softly. I know. That is why you are here, you're kind. You inspire others to act, even when fear holds them back. The next morning, Ethan and Lyra called a gathering of Lyra's council. The council members were tall, regal, and cautious, their golden eyes sharp and critical. Ethan felt their gaze weigh on him, but he stood tall. Humans were accustomed to scrutiny and judgment, and he had learned long ago how to project confidence even in the face of doubt. Lyra introduced him, her voice echoing in their minds. This human is not an intruder. He is a strategist and a survivor. He has helped save our palace from certain defeat. Murmurs spread among the council. Some were skeptical, some intrigued. One elder stepped forward, a tall figure with scales that shimmered like polished silver. A human? How can he, a being so different, understand the threats we face? Ethan stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. I may not be your kind, but I have faced impossible odds before. Humans survive because we adapt. We think, we act, and we take risks when necessary. I am here to combine our strengths, not replace them. Together we can defeat your enemies and protect this city. There was silence for a moment. Then another council member, younger and more open-minded, spoke. Perhaps this is what we need. Someone who sees differently. Someone who can guide us in ways our own kind cannot. Lyra turned to Ethan, her golden eyes glowing with pride. You have begun to earn their trust. Now we act. For the next several days, Ethan worked alongside Lyra and the council to prepare the city for the coming attack. They trained units of Lyra's people in strategies Ethan devised. Combining human unpredictability with alien power, they created ambushes, strengthened defenses, and set traps that would turn the city itself into a weapon. Ethan even designed simple human-style signals and codes that allowed the defenders to coordinate without alerting the enemy. Lyra watched him closely, fascinated by how his mind worked. Your creativity is remarkable, human. You see patterns where others see chaos. Ethan shrugged. It's just what humans do. We survive by thinking ahead, by improvising. Then came the day when scouts reported the enemy was approaching in full force. The rival faction had regrouped and brought reinforcements. Ethan and Lyra could see them moving across the plains, their weapons glowing ominously in the sunlight. This was no longer a small raid. It was a full-scale assault. Lyra turned to Ethan. This will test everything you have taught. Are you ready? Ethan clenched his fists. I've faced worse. Humans survive, and we're not alone anymore. The city's defenses were activated. Energy barriers shimmered along the walls. Hidden traps clicked into place and patrols moved to strategic locations. Ethan coordinated units from different parts of the city, using signals and diversionary tactics to mislead the enemy. Lyra's powers amplified the defenses, bending energy, light, and even the palace itself to their advantage. When the enemy arrived, they were confident, organized, and numerous. But they had underestimated the alliance between human ingenuity and alien power. Ethan's strategies created confusion, forcing the attackers into traps and ambushes. Lyra struck with precision, bending energy blasts and guiding the defenders with uncanny timing. The battle raged across the city. Ethan darted between positions, improvising whenever the enemy adapted. His human mind saw angles and possibilities that Lyra's people could not, turning what seemed like chaos into an advantage. Every victory they gained inspired more of Lyra's people to join in, their trust in Ethan growing with every success. Amid the chaos, Ethan noticed the bond between him and Lyra deepening. He could sense her thoughts and intentions even more clearly, predicting her moves and complementing her strategies. In turn, she could anticipate his decisions, giving them a rhythm that seemed almost unstoppable. Together, they were more than a human and a queen. They were a single force of strategy, courage, and power. Hours passed, and the enemy began to falter. They had expected a simple conquest, but instead faced a city alive with defense, guided by human ingenuity and alien might. Finally, after an exhausting battle, the rival faction retreated, leaving the city intact. Ethan and Lyra stood together atop the palace balcony, breathing heavily but victorious. "You have done it," Lyra projected, her voice warm and proud. "Not alone, human, but with our people. You have shown them what courage and ingenuity can achieve." Ethan smiled faintly, exhaustion weighing on him. "We did it together. Humans survive, yes, but we are strongest when we work with others, even if they are not human." Lyra's eyes glowed softly. "You have changed more than just this city. You have shown my people the power of trust and collaboration. That is rare, even among our kind." The council approached, their expressions a mixture of awe and respect. The elder who had doubted Ethan before now spoke with a tone of approval. "Perhaps we underestimated humans. This one has shown bravery, cleverness, and leadership. He has earned our respect." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "Thank you, but the credit belongs to all of us. We survived together." For the first time, he felt a deep connection not just with Lyra but with her people as well. Humans had always survived by adapting and working together. And now he saw that same principle shaping the future of an alien civilization. As night fell, the palace glowed softly under the twin moons of Zephira 7. Ethan and Lyra stood together, looking out over the city they had saved. The streets were quiet now, the defenders resting, and for a moment peace settled over the palace. "The enemy will return," Lyra projected, her voice calm but firm. "But now we are ready. We have allies, strategy, and trust. Together we are stronger than they could have imagined." Ethan placed a hand on the edge of the glowing balcony. "Then we face whatever comes. Humans survive, and so do we. Together." "Yes," Lyra replied, her golden eyes reflecting the light of the moons. "Together. And perhaps this is only the beginning. Our bond, our alliance, it will shape more than just this city. It will shape the future." Ethan felt a sense of purpose stronger than anything he had ever known. He had come to Zephira 7 as a simple explorer, curious about a distant planet. Now he was more than that. He was a strategist, a protector, and a trusted ally of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Humans had always survived against impossible odds, and now standing beside the alien queen, he realized that their courage, ingenuity, and determination could change the fate of entire civilizations. As he looked out over the glowing city, Ethan knew that more challenges were coming. But he felt ready. He had Lyra's trust, the support of her people, and the human ability to adapt and persevere. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he would face them with courage, strategy, and hope. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the palace, he sensed the beginning of something extraordinary, a bond, a partnership, and a future that neither he nor Lyra could have imagined alone. The palace of Zephira 7 trembled under the shadow of the approaching enemy. Ethan and Lyra stood together atop the central balcony, watching the dark shapes of the rival faction advance across the plains. This was no ordinary attack. They were bringing everything they had, determined to take Lyra and claim the palace. Ethan tightened his fists, feeling the familiar surge of human determination. Humans had faced impossible odds countless times, and they had always found a way to survive. This time would be no different. "We are ready," Lyra projected into his mind, her golden eyes glowing with calm confidence. "But this will test everything we have learned." Ethan nodded. "Then let's make sure they regret underestimating us." The defenders, trained under Ethan's strategies and Lyra's guidance, were ready. Energy barriers shimmered along the city walls. Hidden traps were in place, and patrols waited in precise formations. Every unit, every ally was aware that the fate of their civilization rested on this battle. When the enemy arrived, they struck with relentless precision. Their weapons glowed with destructive energy, capable of shattering the palace walls. But Ethan had anticipated much of their approach. Using reflective surfaces, diversionary tactics, and the palace's shifting corridors, he guided the defenders to strike at the enemy's weaknesses. Lyra's powers complemented his strategies perfectly. She bent energy, light, and the palace's structure itself to their advantage. Walls shifted to block attacks, corridors twisted to trap enemy units, and energy pulses knocked adversaries off balance. Together, human ingenuity and alien power became a force the enemy could not predict. Hours passed in a blur of motion, strategy, and precision. Ethan moved through the battlefield with agility and focus, guiding units, adjusting tactics, and improvising whenever the enemy adapted. Lyra fought beside him, her energy bending the very world around them to protect their people. At one point, a group of enemy commanders managed to breach the inner defenses and aim directly for Lyra. Ethan reacted instantly. Using a combination of energy conduits and reflective surfaces, he created a barrier that redirected the enemy's attack, giving Lyra the opening to strike decisively. She released a wave of energy that sent the intruders sprawling, their weapons disabled. "You act with courage and clarity, human," she projected, admiration in her tone. "Your mind, it is unlike any we have seen." Ethan felt a rush of pride, but he kept moving. There was no time to celebrate. Survival required constant attention, constant adaptation. Humans had always faced impossible situations with creativity and bravery, and this was no exception. The battle reached its climax in the central courtyard. Enemy forces had concentrated their attack, hoping to overwhelm the defenders. But Ethan and Lyra had anticipated this. Ethan directed the units to channel attacks toward weak points, while Lyra manipulated energy fields to divide and confuse the enemy. Their coordination was flawless, a blend of human intuition and alien power that left their foes disoriented and vulnerable. In the chaos, Ethan noticed a lone enemy leader attempting to reach Lyra. Without hesitation, he intercepted, using his agility and quick thinking to block the path. Lyra sensed his action before he even moved, adjusting her energy fields to create the perfect defensive synergy. Together they neutralized the threat, saving countless lives. As the sun of Zephyra 7 rose high above the battlefield, the enemy forces began to retreat. They had underestimated the bond between a human and an alien queen, the combination of human ingenuity and alien might. The city was saved, the palace intact, and the people, Lyra's people, cheering in relief and gratitude. Ethan stood beside Lyra, breathing heavily, yet exhilarated. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "We survived. Together." "Yes," Lyra projected softly, her eyes glowing warmly. "Not just survival, human. We have proven something greater. Your courage, your mind, it has changed the course of this world." The council approached, their expressions filled with admiration. The elder who had once doubted Ethan stepped forward. "Perhaps we underestimated humans," he said. "This one has shown wisdom, bravery, and leadership beyond his kind. He has earned our respect and trust." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Thank you," he said. "But the victory belongs to all of us. Your people, your courage, and your unity, combined with our human ingenuity, made this possible." Lyra's gaze softened. "And yet your presence was the spark, human. It is rare to find someone who can inspire, adapt, and survive as you have. We are bound now, not just by victory but by destiny." Ethan looked at her, understanding fully for the first time the depth of their connection. Their fates were no longer separate. Humanity and the alien queen were entwined in a bond that transcended species, language, and even worlds. In the following days, peace settled over Zephyra 7. The palace hummed softly, responding to Ethan and Lyra's presence. They worked together to heal damage, restore energy flows, and ensure the city thrived. Ethan's human perspective continued to offer new insights, showing solutions that even Lyra had not considered. As they stood together one evening overlooking the glowing city, Ethan spoke quietly. "I never imagined my life would lead me here. A human, standing beside an alien queen, shaping the fate of an entire civilization." Lyra smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the city lights. "And yet it is no surprise. Your kind has always survived, adapted, and inspired. You are part of something greater now, Ethan. Our fates are intertwined. Together we will face whatever comes." Ethan felt a surge of hope. Humans had always been resilient, capable of extraordinary courage in the face of danger. And now, in this alien world, that courage had forged a bond that could change the course of history. Over the following weeks, Ethan and Lyra worked to strengthen the alliance further. Humans and aliens learned from each other, sharing knowledge, strategies, and ideas. Ethan's ingenuity combined with Lyra's power created innovations that ensured the city's long-term survival. The people began to look at humans not as outsiders but as partners, capable, courageous, and vital to the survival of their civilization. One quiet night, as the twin moons of Zephira 7 reflected across the palace, Lyra turned to Ethan. "You have changed more than the city, human. You have changed hearts, minds, and perhaps even the future. Our bond, it is the bridge between our worlds." Ethan smiled, feeling the weight and joy of her words. "I've always believed humans can make a difference. I just never imagined it would be here with you." She extended her hand and Ethan took it. The connection was immediate, a surge of energy and understanding flowing between them. It was more than a bond. It was a recognition of shared destiny, courage, and hope. "Whatever comes next," Lyra projected, "we will face it together. Human and queen, bound by choice and destiny, our world, our future, is ours to shape." Ethan looked out over the city, seeing the lights of the citizens celebrating their survival. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Humans had always survived by adapting, thinking, and trusting in each other. Now his humanity had reached across the stars, shaping the future of an alien world. "Together," he whispered, echoing her words, "we can face anything." Lyra's golden eyes glowed with warmth and pride. "Yes, together, and this is only the beginning." For the first time, Ethan understood fully that his journey had not been about exploration alone. It had been about connection, courage, and the power of humanity to inspire change. He had come as a human explorer, but he remained part of something much greater now, a partnership with an alien civilization, a bond with a powerful queen, and a role in shaping a future that neither could have imagined alone. The palace hummed softly around them, alive and vibrant. The city thrived, the people celebrated, and Ethan stood beside Lyra feeling the strength of both human courage and alien power. Together they had survived impossible odds, forged alliances, and created hope where there had been fear. And as the twin moons of Zephira 7 shone brightly above, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. Humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed. And now, entwined with the fate of the alien queen, humanity's story had become part of something larger, something extraordinary, something that would echo across the stars. Their journey was far from over, but they would face it together,